sort of have a formula in my head, and then a lot of it is intuition. And the formula includes things that we've been committed to for all of our existence, which are classic theater, classical plays, the best of kind of contemporary theater, and new plays. Plays that we believe are very relevant today, maybe introducing us to a new way that theater is produced and performed. And to try to get the balance between all three of those things is my challenge. You're trying to bring a vision of the world that is both diverse and multifaceted in any one season. You've got to figure out what that balance is between your family series middle school show, which in this case will be an adaptation of a great novel by Lois Lowry, The Giver, which is still taught all over America in middle schools. And how do you balance that with what else you're doing in the season? Because at the same time we're doing that, we'll be doing White Christmas. It's just a constant kind of dazzling showbiz musical. And at the same time we'll be doing When We Are Married, three completely different shows. One, a great American classical musical. The other one, When We Are Married, not as well known, was incredibly popular in the 20th century and has been done around the country. But its premise is something we can all connect to, and that is what happens after you've been married 25 years and you feel you're quite important in the community you live in, and you discover your marriage isn't legal. Would you stay married? Would you marry someone else? Would you worry about scandal first and foremost? And this is a comedy that kind of explores all those questions, guaranteed to make people laugh.
You work and work so that you can have pleasure in your spare time?
We will have the experience with a weekend with Pablo Picasso, that it'll be engaging and also fun. It's also a great, since the play is written by the performer, Herbert Siguenza, who is one of really the brilliant Latino actors in this country. Phenomenal performer. He plays Pablo Picasso. He shares his life story with us, but he also paints his way through the evening. So who could ask for anything more? You get to see somebody paint, act, and he's written the material. And it's about certainly one of the greatest artists of the 20th century around the world, Pablo Picasso. The play that has been frequently requested at the Denver Center Theater Company in a revival is Fences by August Wilson. It's an extraordinary play. It's quintessentially about an American father and son, African American, in Pittsburgh, which is where Wilson grew up, in the late 1950s. And it was a critical time of change. The civil rights awareness was growing, but you had a whole generation of African American men in the North, in the Midwest, that had overcome some of the racial prejudice of where they lived before, but hit a glass ceiling. A man that was very successful in the Negro Baseball League, but tries to keep his own son out of becoming a professional baseball player because he believes he'll go nowhere. The other play that we're doing next year that is right off of Broadway, it's currently still running on Broadway, is Other Desert Cities by John Robin Bates. John Robin Bates is a theater playwright. He's had several successful plays. Most people know him as a television writer. He created and wrote Brothers and Sisters, the series on TV. And this is the first play he wrote afterwards. Why did I pick this play versus some of the other new plays, whether it's Venus in Fur by David Ives or God of Carnage, which was a recent Broadway hit, or it's Sons of the Prophets, a beautiful new play about a Muslim family in Pennsylvania. And all of those plays were contenders, but I was really drawn to this play because it's about a family embodiment of some of the political strains in America today. It's a writer comes home to her very successful Hollywood industry, big-time Republican parents in Palm Springs. And she's written a nonfiction book, her second book, that reveals a deeply held family secret. and she plans to publish it. But of course they get into things that you get into with any family celebration. You start arguing about your conservative viewpoint or your liberal viewpoint, what's going on in the world, how it could be fixed. But the real reason I like the play, besides it's incredibly funny and surprising, is that it keeps surprising you, and the characters actually become more complex as the play goes along. In the next season, we'll be doing Grace, or the Art of Climbing, by a very gifted young playwright out of Yale, Lauren Feldman. And this is a play about a very unusual topic, and the staging is going to be thrilling, but really difficult. It's about a young woman whose father's had a stroke and her longtime relationship is broken up in 2 days. And she goes into a depression, and then she has to climb out of that depression, which she does by going back to rock climbing, something her father taught her. And she hurdles herself down this path and ends up training to be a champion rock climber. It requires 6 actors who can rock climb, and we're going to do it in the Space Theater, which is in the Round. So that 25, 30 feet from the floor of the stage to the grid, actors are going to be climbing up and down that space. So it'll be very exciting physical theater, but it's also about a young woman's view of the world, and it's a play that I don't think a man would write from that perspective. In the other play we're doing is equally exciting and equally challenging, but completely different. And that play incorporates video, live video, interaction with the actors. That's the only way you can tell the story. It's called Ed Downloaded by Michael Mitnick, another young playwright out of Yale. And he's written a play about in the near future when people can download their brains and their favorite memories into some kind of computer storage. And his wife, who runs the Institute of the man that's dying, discovers after he's died that of the 10 memories he downloaded, 8 were him with somebody else. Our third world premiere next year is a very special project, completely different from Grace or Ed Downloaded, and that is a new musical adaptation of the Jane Austen novel Sense and Sensibility. It's completely different, of course. It's set back in the Regency era of England. It has a cast of 16 to 18 actors. It's got lovely music throughout, and it's trying to put on stage one of Jane Austen's most romantic novels, but also a novel about these 2 sisters that go through a remarkable roller coaster ride of dealing with tragedy, with loss, with good fortunes and then declining fortunes, with fiancés and then no fiancé, with betrayal. But in the end, they stay true to themselves and they grow into a wonderful happy ending. We want to change both how theater's done, but also draw in a new audience to theater through new plays and alternative ways of looking at theater. I don't think I pick a season based on a theme. I pick a season for the many different stories, both 400 years old and 200 years old and yesterday and today and maybe tomorrow. I will say that usually what happens is I get halfway through the season and a patron, a ticket buyer, comes up to me at intermission and says, I know what this season's about, and they tell me. And a lot of times they're right. This year, however, thinking about it, I think there is a cluster of themes that this year is about, and that has to do with romance, both love and marriage. It has to do with what I think would be called redemption, or the way people kind of earn their place in the world, overcome some of their deficits, overcome some of their past sins to try to move forward. And it has to do with the enduring power in many ways of love. Whether it's love that doesn't work out, D'Artagnan in Three Musketeers, who he loses his intended love to the villainous machinations of Richelieu, or Romeo and Juliet, the star-crossed love, which is indeed star-crossed, but also coming out of a tradition of gangs and family violence and family dysfunction. But I'm waiting for one of the audience members, you, to tell me what the theme really is. If you want to see thrilling, classical and contemporary stories about people trying to figure out their life, their role in the world, whom they're going to love, how they're going to do that, come and see this season.